There's something about this dual screen Android handheld that has made it one of the most anticipated of 2025 and continues into 2026. Let's take a closer look at the AYN Thor and find out if it's been worth the wait. It measures around 5.9 by 3.7 by 1 inch and weighs around 380 grams. It is a tad larger than the 3DS and smaller than the AYN Pocket DS, making it far more portable. It is available in 4 colours: black, white, rainbow and clear purple. The lid initially opens up quite loosely and stops at the first position. The second is a little further back and the third is a 180-degree stop. They feel quite sturdy and we haven't seen any reports of damaged hinges which have plagued other devices. The great looking 6-inch AMOLED screen has a 1080 by 1920 resolution supporting 120Hz. It fits the lid quite nicely with some larger bezels on the sides. On the single sheet glass covered lower half we have the second display, which is a 3.92 inch AMOLED with a 1080 by 1240 resolution that runs at a 60Hz refresh rate. On either side of the screen are the RGB lit dual analog sticks, D-pad and gaming buttons. In the bottom centre is a raised area which has a button for the dual screen controls, which we will show later in the review. On the bottom side there are volume and power buttons, followed by a USB 3.1 port for charging data and video output. There's a 3.5mm audio jack and last but not least a covered micro SD card to expand the storage. The top side has just the left and right analog triggers and shoulder buttons. Overall it fits really well into your hands and has a nice balance to it. It is very comfortable to hold, but if you do want more grip there is the optional TPU grip made specifically for this handheld. It simply slides into place and provides a very game controller like feel. The AYN Thor comes in 2 CPU configurations with varying RAM and storage options. There is the SD865 CPU with Adreno 650 GPU based Lite model. It has 8GB of LPDDR5x RAM and 128GB UFS 3.1 storage. The second is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with Adreno 740 and is the model we will be reviewing. It comes with choices of 8, 12 and 16GB for the Lite, Base, Pro and Max models. And there are 128 or 256GB or 1TB UFS 4.1 options for storage. For communications there is Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. Powering it all is a 6000 mAh battery. We conducted our usual max settings battery life test running an 2 on a loop, full brightness on both displays, with the high performance setting with fans at full speed. We got a battery life of 3 hours 10 minutes. Average battery life will of course depend on what you are playing, brightness levels, having one or both screens switched on etc. But you are looking at around 8 hours easily and more if lowering the performance etc. where possible. In our fan noise and temperature test which we conducted whilst testing the battery life, we got a highest fan noise of 63 decibels, 58 on sport and 47 on the smart fan settings. We saw a bit of a temperature build up on the right side of the handheld of around 45 degrees C. This is generally around the expected temperatures, even a little lower compared to others, but it does warm up the area just below the Y and B buttons in particular. It's not at the point where it's uncomfortable like with other handhelds I've experienced in the past, but worth noting if you are very sensitive to heat. For our benchmarks, we will be comparing the AYN Portal, which has the same processor, as well as the AYN Pocket DS with the G3 Gen 2 processor for dual screen handheld comparison. We have also tested with and without the bottom display on, as there are some difference in performance. Geekbench tests the single or multi-core performance of the CPU. We see around the expected scores for single screen performance when compared to the Portal. There is a noticeable drop in performance when both are switched on. Antutu performs an overall test of the device with a variety of benchmarks. There is a small increase in performance with just one display switched on, but both are a little lower than the AYN Portal. And in the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme benchmark, we see a small difference between 1 and 2 screens switched on, and again both slightly lower than the AYN Portal. The 4 runs on Android 13 with options for the stock home screen or AYNs. Pressing the AYN button in the centre brings up the dual screen controls. There are 3 tabs: Mode, Task and Settings. Mode controls the dual screen operation for switching off displays, controlling the brightness and volumes. Nice and easy. Task shows the apps in the bottom screen. Selecting an app to run from here will run it in the bottom screen. And the settings menu provides on-screen information on the frame rate as well as other stats and access to shortcuts for the performance profiles, fan speeds and other commonly used functions. Overall, it's well presented, easy to navigate and use. You do of course have the AYN overlay, which has shortcuts to common functions. It does feel a little redundant, what with the options being accessible on the lower screen, but you do have access to the screen mapping software, screenshots, etc. We tried our usual bunch of Android games and had no issues with performance. Alien Isolation run great and Prince of Persia was fully playable. You shouldn't have any issues with the vast majority of Android games. The built-in screen mapping software allows you to easily map the on-screen touch areas to the gaming controls. If a game does not natively support joysticks, it allows for many games to be mapped and played this way. As usual, no issues at all with setting it up or using it. We saw with the AYN portal and others how much of a game changer this Snapdragon processor was. All of your systems up to the PS2 era will run great, and provided there are no emulator compatibility issues, you shouldn't have any issues either, and can upscale to 1080p with graphics improvements. Let's check out a few dual screen systems. Dual screen games will of course work great. Drastic has built-in support for 2 displays, and with a few changes in the settings you can get it working great. You shouldn't have any issues at all in terms of performance or compatibility. The 3D dual screen emulator also works great. Again, there is built-in support for 2 displays, so you can get up and running quite easily with no issues. As always, there are a few games that may have some very minor shaded cache lag, but nothing that breaks the gameplay. The CMU emulator Android port is in the early stages of development, and dual screen is unofficially supported via a fork. There's not many games that use both screens, and some games are simply not fully compatible, so there's nothing special to see here right now. In the past year we have seen some impressive improvements in performance due to the Turnip graphics drivers. Many of the demanding emulators support them, and while using you will see a noticeable increase in speed. The Vita emulator runs great on this handheld. For compatible games you won't have any issues at the standard resolution, and for many you can increase the rendering resolution for improved visuals. The Odin emulator overall runs very well. Providing the game is compatible with the emulator, there are many games that will work great. The more demanding games are mixed performance, but we saw decent playable results with games we're not allowed to talk about or show. We know that AYN Thor is a very popular handheld, and I would say that if this has been on your wish list you will not be disappointed. Performance wise we see a little lower than AYN Portal, even with the bottom display switched off. However, with real world usages you would likely be hard pressed to see any difference side by side. It is a very capable processor and greatly improved with the Turnip drivers for higher demanding emulators. The overall design and comfortability is very good. The size makes it extremely portable, fitting in pockets very easily. The single glass sheet on the bottom half looks cool, but is a fingerprint magnet. In terms of comfortability, it feels very nice in your hands, and with the optional TPU grip it feels great. As to which you should decide on between AYN Pocket DS and this, both have their advantages and disadvantages in terms of performance, price, design, size, portability, etc. It is a bit of a personal preference for this. Check out our Pocket DS review to see what best suits you. Overall, it is a fantastic handheld. We have dual screens, decent performance and excellent portability. There's nothing much to dislike about it. It gets a big thumbs up from me. You can learn more and order yours from us at DROIX. Visit droix.co.uk, droix.eu or droix.net for UK, EU and worldwide shipping respectively. That wraps up our review. We hope you have found it useful. Don't forget to subscribe to help continue to grow this channel, and we will keep making videos. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.